Welcome to Bible Reader Companion. We are continuing our studies and wrapping up our studies this week in James chapters 4 and 5. And today we're going to actually conclude with the last couple of verses of James chapter 5, the last chapter in the book. And it's something that is important, but can be very challenging for us to do. He says, beginning in verse 19, James 5, beginning in verse 19, reading from the New King James Version. Brethren, if anyone among you wanders from the truth and someone turns him back, let him know that he who turns a sinner from the error of his way will save a soul from death and cover a multitude of sins. You know, one of the hardest things to do is to go to somebody and tell them they're wrong or they're in sin. In part because we don't want to hurt their feelings. In part because we don't want to be rejected. In part because if we're on the other side, we don't want to hear it. We don't want to be told that we're doing something wrong. We don't want to be told that we need to change or that our spiritual lives are in jeopardy. And yet, this is one of the very important things that we need to do. I almost forgot there's one of the reasons we frequently don't do this, and that's because we don't know our brethren well enough to know when they're in trouble. You know, the implication here is that we know our brethren well enough that when they are in sin and when they're having a problem, we can see it and we can recognize it. And that we love them enough to try to help them. Somebody says, you mean it's love to tell somebody that they're wrong? Well, yeah. Wouldn't it be love if I were about to stick my hand into a fire because I didn't realize it was going to get burned, or I wasn't paying attention, or maybe I just have a problem with fire? And somebody comes along and says, hey, take your hand away from the fire. You're gonna permanently scar your skin, maybe lose your hand because that fire is dangerous. Would it be more loving for them to let me just stick my hand in the fire and let it burn? See my hand on fire and say, hey, brother, how you doing? Oh, all good. When my hand is clearly in trouble. Why do we think that when someone has a spiritual problem, it's any less loving to help them remove that sin from their lives? Look at what he says. He who turns a sinner from the error of his way will save a soul from death and cover a multitude of sins. How much more loving can you be than to save someone from death and to help them cover their sins? Think about that the next time you know somebody who's having a problem. Are you willing and do you love them enough to help them? Thank you for thinking on these things with us this week, and we hope you'll join us again next week.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook for more content like this.